All right, first off, does everyone see the General Emergency Services PowerPoint slide that I'm showing? Okay, thank you. All right, good evening, everyone. I'm Lieutenant Colonel Jacob Hiles. Among many things, I am the Group 1 Operations Officer. I have a senior rating in emergency services. I have a master's degree in emergency management, and I am an advanced ranger from the Hawk Mountain Ranger School. Off again, on again staff member up there. Cadet Zhang is my assistant today. If you could introduce yourself, say a little bit about yourself.
Hi everyone, Cadet Zhang here. I'm actually located in Utah right now, but joining in to help out. Been a cadet since about 2014. Got to GTM 1, but let that expire and recently just renewed GTM 2 and 3 and all sorts. So been around the block a couple times, been to NISA a couple times. And yeah, I'm just happy to be here to help.
Also like to add, I am a incident commander in Illinois Wing, and I hold a lot of other ratings underneath that. So like Cadet Zhang, I've been around a while doing general ES and ES related things for pretty much my entire CAP career. So this is General Emergency Services. The point of this is to get you ready to take your CAP Test 116, provide a general overview of emergency services. All right, here's some of the things we're going to talk about today. And some of this stuff like bloodborne pathogens has become even more prevalent, especially dealing with COVID. All right, first off, these are some of the missions that we do in Civil Air Patrol. The search and rescue, both in the ground and in the air. Disaster relief, we're doing a lot of that right now with the COVID support missions. Reconnaissance and counter drug, they're not happening so much right now, but they are missions that we have done in the past and may do again in the future. Then transportation. At the start of the COVID crisis, we had some transportation missions going on, either ground or air, where we were flying test kits and things like that. So these missions still happen regularly. We do have lots of memorandums of understanding with different organizations. We can't operate on our own, and that's something you need to remember. We are not the only game in town. There's lots of other organizations and agencies out there that we need to work with. So some of them, the Air Force Rescue Coordination Center, they are generally the people we get our taskings from for search missions. And FEMA, a lot of times we'll get our disaster relief missions through them. Some of the people we'll be working with, depending on what is going on, is the Red Cross, the FAA, NOAA, the Weather Service, Salvation Army, Customs. If you're down along the, particularly the southern border, you have a lot more interaction with the Customs, the DEA when we're doing the counter drug, and state agencies and your local partners as well. There's three main areas of qualification. Ground and urban direction finding teams, where you have your ground team leader and your 3 levels of ground team member, then the urban direction finding team. Air crews, there's more than just these 3, but your basic air crew is a mission pilot, scanner, and observer. The observer, think of them as a co-pilot, navigator, mission commander rolled into one. They sit in the front right seat. There are other air crew positions available, such as DART operator, aerial photographer. Those are the main ones you're going to run into, and there's a couple other specialized positions out there. Then mission-based personnel. That starts with the mission staff assistant. That is the entry-level position and goes up from there. These are the ones that run your mission and or training exercises. All right, so your initial qualification requirements, you have to have completed level 1 and the cadet protection training for senior members. And for cadets, you have to have achievement 1 done. Once you've done that, you can take the CAP Test 116, and I will cover at the end of this session how you take that test. You need to be obviously a current member. And what you'll get once you do that is a CAP Form 101. Now this picture at the right, those of us who have been around a while will recognize that it's extremely outdated, but I left it there just for nostalgia's sake. These 27 items are all that used to be on the 101 card. Now if you look at it, there's an entire 2 more columns of qualifications you could have. But back in the day, this was it. And you're basically a trainee until you've completed all the specialties. And we'll talk a little bit about what being a trainee means and how you become a trainee. But if nothing else, try to get yourself to be a mission staff assistant. That is entry level for just about everything else. You've got 3 years to maintain your proficiency before you expire. So pay attention to your skills once you get qualified. If you're doing a skill, make sure you log it, or a task, make sure you log it off. Otherwise, you get to the end of 3 years and realize you haven't logged anything and are scrambling or possibly expire. So 3 years is the expiration date for most of your specialties. There are a couple exceptions. So the general emergency services, that's good until a new CAP Test 116 is issued. It's been several years since we had a new one. Transport mission pilot and mission pilot, they're kind of related. If your pilot status lapses, then your equivalent TMP or MP status will also lapse. So general emergency services, this is the beginning. This is where you start. It's not terribly hard. It's an open book test. So cadets, as you move up in the program, you will learn how to take tests, and it's not that hard. So complete the test, get your level 1 or achievement 1, and you're ready to start training. The rating requirements are everything is conducted per the national task guides, which are located at the link below. And I saw someone ask, these slides will be available for everyone. So in order to start training, you have to have some prerequisites done. Each one of the specialty tracks has initial requirements. Some of them, you have to be 18 years old. So sorry, cadets, a lot of the aircrew stuff is outside of your reach unless you're 18. You have to complete the familiarization and preparatory training before you appear as a trainee on your 101 card. This is something that's not entirely clear to a lot of people. They will look at their SQTR and say, hey, I've got lots of blocks filled out. Why am I not a trainee? Well, it's probably because you haven't completed all of the FAM and prep training. Once that's done and your commander is signed off on the next level, you would move on to the advanced training. And there's usually a CAP Test 117, one of the 3 parts that it will apply, and 2 missions to participate in. Then that gets you your skill signed off. So the unit commander is the one who approves you to start training, and there's 2 different places usually they do that. And you have to get your training done within 2 years. So if you don't think you're going to be able to start or finish a particular track, you need to make sure you don't start it. Don't start it until you can finish it, basically. A qualified evaluator has to sign off on the training. Whenever you go enter your training, they will ask for the skill evaluator. You can put the person's name or CAP ID in, and this is something I'll cover extensively on Wednesday. But if their name doesn't show up in that block, you can't use them as an evaluator. And each person should know if they're qualified to teach a certain task or not. And you can't sign your own stuff off.
Yeah. And that actually has changed in recent years. It used to be e-services wouldn't catch that. Now it will automatically catch it. If somebody's not a qualified evaluator, they won't let you put it in. It used to be you can put any number you wanted in, and it kind of was iffy. So I'm kind of glad they put that feature in.
Yes, prevents fraud. I mentioned this a little bit earlier, but these are some of the main partner agencies we work with. Like I said, FEMA is where our disaster relief missions come from. Not too familiar with the National Security Emergency Preparedness Organization, but like I said, the AFRCC, we do get our search missions from them. And the National Transportation Safety Board, they will be involved investigating a lot of the aircraft accidents. Activation. There's been a lot of talk and questions to the wing commander. Why haven't we been activated? Why can't we go do support missions for COVID? Well, basically, we haven't been asked. So we do not activate ourselves. One of the things you can establish to get activated is develop relationships with your local organization so they know you exist and that you're an asset, so they do call you in times like this. All right, so for the wing, the incident commander is assigned by the wing commander. That's one of those things that requires upper level approval to be assigned as an incident commander and get qualified. And then the wings has an alert roster, and they'll send out announcements. You've probably gotten the pager, or not pager, that's old school, but getting texts or emails about missions going on and needs like that. So if you're qualified and you have signed up properly, you can get added to those lists. One of the options you may have noticed if you dug around in your e-services, you can add what's called an alpha pager to your contacts. If you do that, essentially that is the email address associated with your cell phone number. If you enter that, that's how you can get those texts. It's a pretty simple way to get alerted. All right, signing in. Paperwork is everything in Civil Air Patrol if you haven't figured that out yet. It's also for your own safety. We get insurance coverage when we're on missions if you're actually on the mission. So before you leave for a mission, make sure you are signed in. You can sign in from home. WIMRS, the Web Information Management Resource System, is the system of record. That's where you sign into a mission. And make sure you should come back Wednesday, and we'll walk over how to use that. So your vehicle, your airplane, everything needs to be signed in the mission to be legal. If you're driving to a mission and you get in an accident, you're not covered by our insurance. All right, so there's also paper forms, incident command system forms. You can use the 211 and the 218, and then personnel signing on the 214. Once you get to the mission, the resource unit leader will probably retask you. So you may show up as your squadron ground team and then get broken up or reassigned once you arrive based on the needs of the mission. So here we have an example of the personnel check-in and a vehicle inventory. You might see these more often if you're working on a mission with another agency, but for Civil Air Patrol, we're always checking in on WIMRS. All right, so there are some risks we have to worry about. Obviously, traveling to and from mission base, no matter how safe a driver you are, you have to worry about the rest of the people on the road. So first off, make sure you're doing those required vehicle inspections so that you don't have your tire fall off as you're going through an intersection, which happened when I was a cadet one time. The tire passed us as we went through the intersection. So make sure you're doing good vehicle inspections so that you're safe. Make sure you have people in the vehicle scanning for other dangerous drivers. Make sure your driver is properly rested, or your pilot for that case. There are rules for the aircrew about how much sleep you're supposed to have before a mission, so make sure they're following that. And it's something the pilot should be getting briefed on before they even get released. Watch for electrical or antenna wires, especially if you have a comm unit set up. They should have all the wires and everything flagged, but just make sure you get that briefing where the station's at when you get to a mission. If you're out near the flight line, watch for the prop spinning. It gets loud out there, so pilot may not hear you if you're shouting. So just keep your eyes peeled for that. Like I said at the bottom, safety is number one priority. So don't take any unnecessary risks. And that's kind of the reason we're still doing virtual meetings. The wing is being very cautious when it comes to the risk of COVID. So it's probably going to be a while before we actually get to meet in person because Colonel Dempsey is not taking any unnecessary risks. All right, responsibility, kind of like Colonel 30 here started off with. You are responsible to obtain and read the current publications. I emphasize current. If you don't know, Civil Air Patrol is undergoing a publications reorganization and rewrite for many of the publications. That means if you download and save something on your hard drive, last year, it's a good chance it's out of date. So make sure you have the current stuff. I do have lots of stuff downloaded, but whenever I need to look something up, I always check the Go Civil Air Patrol webpage to make sure I have the current publication. And Cadet Zhang just posted that link for you if you don't have it. One thing to note, as members of Civil Air Patrol, we don't have any special rights above the ordinary citizen. So we can't go tromping through someone's property chasing down a missing person or an ELT. If you need to go onto private land, you need to contact the owner first and get permission. And if you violate any laws or rules, put yourself in undue harm, you will be removed. Basically, it's on your head. So Air Patrol is not going to protect you. So be safe. Speaking of being safe, bloodborne pathogens. This is a separate class you can sometimes find from the Red Cross. It's especially applicable now. This is talking about some bloodborne pathogens, hepatitis B, AIDS, and some other stuff. And the reason this is important is if you are at a crash site, I've been at crash sites before on missions where there's dead bodies and parts everywhere. You've got to watch out you're not touching any of that stuff, coming into contact with it. So you want to make sure you always have gloves as part of your kit. In my vehicle, I have a first aid kit that also includes a CPR mask so that if I have to assist someone or give CPR at an accident, I'm protected from any contamination. Typically, it'll be a ground team leader that goes into a site. If you need to do take some pictures of the site and everything, if you have anyone that might need rescued, you want to take pictures before you move anything. So most of the ground team members will stay back and the ground team leader will go in. And that might be covered in some of the later exercises. And now with COVID, especially, you're going to have masks. Most of us all have a mask by now. So just avoid unnecessary exposure. All right, so there's some ways to protect yourself. Engineering controls, this is washing. So make sure you can wash or sanitize. Watch the, if you have any needles, which most of us shouldn't, but if you find needles or sharp things, make sure you're protecting that. If you're at a crash site, cover up the sharp stuff if you can. If you're going to be there overnight, use sharps containers for needles and things like that. Make sure you have your protective material. Most of us are going to have gloves, maybe masks. We're probably not going to have the rest of the stuff unless we have a separate kit that we happen to carry with us. So other agencies, firefighters, policemen we work with, they may have this, but most CAP units I've seen don't have something like this. And then exercise what's called universal precautions. That means if it's a bodily fluid, assume that it's contaminated with some disease and stay away from it. All right, this is an important information here, negligence. You only operate to the extent that you're trained. So don't try to do something you haven't been trained for. Otherwise, it can be seen as negligence. If you are not trained in first aid and CPR, don't do it. You're likely to hurt yourself, and you may not be covered by Good Samaritan laws. So we are required to have first aid training. Some of the other courses you go to do require CPR training. It's good to have. I recommend everybody get it. But the important part is perform to your level of training. Only do what you've been trained to do. Otherwise, you're not going to be covered. Typically, what a Good Samaritan law is you will not be liable if something happens in an accident if you're operating within your training limitations. If you go outside that, then you could be liable for negligence. And the degrees are listed there, slight, ordinary, or gross. Those all have legal definitions I'm not going to get into, but just know, operate within your level of training. All right, we covered this earlier. We do not have any special rights above other citizens. So Posse Comitatus Act basically means we cannot be used as law enforcement, even while on an Air Force mission. We can't carry firearms, we can't arrest people, we can't seize property or conduct surveillance. There's different rules when you encounter a drug. What they're doing isn't surveillance. And if you're encountering a drug, you get briefed on what you're supposed to be doing. You can't be deputized. You can provide passive assistance, and that's generally in counter drug operations. You can't trespass, and like I said before, no special dispensations. All right, this is important. This is why we have our public information officers as a growing field in Civil Air Patrol. It's important to control information and make sure the correct information gets out there. One, we need to protect family privacy and discriminate against false reports. So make sure the truth gets out and not some stories. The incident commander or the public information officer is the only one that can release details of an ongoing operation. So don't just, someone asks you a question, don't say, not authorized talk, or I can't say, just pass them on to the right person, they will get the details. Because as a member out in the field, it's unlikely we're going to have the full story. Those at mission base, they're probably going to have better information and a big picture that we in the field will not. This comes into play where if you're doing witness interviews, if they've seen too much on the news about they may be led to provide information they didn't necessarily see because they're trying to help. All right, and it's important here, the family needs to know first. So if we do find the missing person, we don't want the family finding out about it, especially the dead, on the news. So that's why it has to go through public affairs. However, you can talk to the media and people asking questions, just general Civil Air Patrol information. So it pays to understand the program, know what's going on. You could potentially recruit some people while on a mission. All right, kind of covered this already. Yeah, don't just say no comment, get them to the right person who can help them. Do not discuss the target description, search, or results. Give your opinions on whether or not you're going to find the person alive. You can't just say, yeah, we think this guy's dead. We're just out here going through the motions. You don't want to say that. And don't be rude or bossy. Things you should say. Be nice to people. You can say you're a CAP member working on a mission, direct them to the right person. And be alert. There's people out there may have information, not know who to give it to. So if you happen to find that person, you overhear them say something that sounds like it applies to the mission, pass them off to the public information officer. All right, money, everyone's favorite subject. You can get reimbursed for some things. Typically, it's aircraft flight hours. We don't really fly a lot of member-owned aircraft in CAP anymore, so that's a little bit dated. I also haven't seen anything ever reimbursed for communications. The big ones are the flight hours and the vehicle fuel and oil. Now you can, if you're using your personal vehicle, you can actually get reimbursed for fuel for that vehicle. The trick is it has to be signed into the mission as a mission asset, and it has to have already been approved by the incident commander or wing commander. That's the key. So if you're driving a long way to a mission base, or if your squadron doesn't have a CAP vehicle and using your own, that's fine. Just make sure it's properly signed into the mission as a mission asset. This is the important part here. You have to have your receipts and everything turned in within 72 hours of the sortie completion. If it goes past that, you risk not being reimbursed. All right, that's part one. Any questions to cover before we move on to the incident command system? All right. I should back up and say that CAPREG 60-3 is your go-to guide for all this stuff. So you're going to find most of your answers in there. All right. We started utilizing the incident command system several years ago because it helps us with several things. Span of control, unit of command. It applies a common terminology not only amongst the Air Patrol, but against all other emergency management agencies. So when you say someone is a branch chief, everybody knows what a branch chief is. Organizational level, teams get typed, assets get typed, and everyone knows what an incident command post is because we all use the same terminology. Then unified command if there's a larger incident. All right, this is something that can be used for both planned, unplanned, emergency, and non-emergency events. It's flexible, it's scalable. So you could use it if you're doing a fundraiser. For instance, we do a lot of car parking where I'm at. We can use the incident command system to organize that event. You can also use it for your own local training exercise. And it, of course, gets used for the large exercises. All right, here is a description of it. It is a combination of facilities, equipment, personnel, procedures, and communications operating within a common organizational structure with responsibility for management of assigned resources to effectively direct and control response to an incident. And that last part's important. That's the whole point of it. Effectively direct and control response. Here's some examples. For span of control, it's really hard for one leader in the red here to take care of 7 people. It's more effective for one person to be in charge of 3 people and those people are in charge of 1 or 2. The optimum span of control is 5, and 3 to 7 is about the range you're looking at. This applies not just to emergency services. Just think about your squadron organization. If you have flights with 1 person in charge of 18 people, you probably need to add some subordinate leaders in there, get some element leaders, something like that. All right, unity of command. It's a clear line of supervision. That means you all have 1 boss. It goes up to 1 person at the top. In this situation, we're talking about the incident commander. And chain of command. There's an orderly ranking of man positions in the line of authority. So you're not going from the bottom all the way to the top. There's people along the way to help provide supervision and direction. All right, this is an important one to note. So if you have someone that is working as the planning and intelligence section chief, underneath them, you've got 1 guy doing multiple jobs. So the proper way to do it is not put this John Smith as the resource and situation unit leader, you would have it broken out as the resource unit leader under John Smith and the situation unit under John Smith. Because underneath John Smith, he could have different assets for the resource unit, and when he's wearing the situation hat, he could have different resources. So that's why you want to make sure they're broken out. And if it's a small instance, you may have one person doing multiple jobs, but you want to keep them labeled separately. Common terminology is one of the benefits of the incident command system. Our position titles and support titles are the same across the board. So are the organizational levels and the resource types and conditions. And whenever you get a chance, go ahead and take a look at this link when you get the slides. This lays out the resource typing system that is used. So you can see what it takes to be a type 1, type 2 ground search team, or air search, or airborne relay. They have all that stuff laid out. This is an ongoing project, so not everything is laid out, but you can find out what it takes to be typed as a communications unit, a ground search leader, air crew, things like that. And we also use common terms for our facilities, like I mentioned earlier. All right, so your incident commander is called an incident commander, and they can have an assistant. The command staff are referred to as officers, and they have assistants. Sections are led by a chief with a deputy chief if needed. Divisions and groups are led by supervisors. Strike teams or task force are led by leaders. Same for units. Units are led by leaders, and they could have a manager as an assistant. And a single resource is referred to as a unit, like a maybe a K9 unit or something like that. All right, this is your command staff. You have your incident commander who has overall responsibility for everyone. You have a chaplain, your public affairs, safety, then your liaison to work with the other agencies. Then underneath that, you have the general staff. This is where you have operations, planning, logistics, and finance admin. Finance admin, that's the important part, especially if you have a big exercise going on for a long time. You want to make sure you're taking care of your finances along the way. Don't just wait to the end and dump a giant stack of receipts on this poor person. I say this because my wife is this poor person, and it's much easier to get things done as you go as opposed to waiting to the end. All right, and this is how it breaks down. You have a section, a branch, and a division or group underneath that, and then you have single resources. The needs of the incident determine the organization. So if you have a small incident, you may just have an incident commander doing pretty much everything all the way down, taking care of all the general staff themselves. As it gets bigger, you want to branch out and add more sections. All right, this is when you transfer command. So if you're the initial person on scene, you're the incident commander, no matter what your qualification is, because you are the person on site. As someone more qualified comes along, you may want to hand it off to them. If a different jurisdiction or agency takes over, or if they're legally required, you want to hand it off. Or if it's a long incident, you reach the end of your 12-hour shift, you're going to hand it off to your replacement. All right, let's talk about some resource types. So a single resource, that's the person on equipment. So you would have a police car, that includes the car and the officer and his possibly partner or whatever. A strike team is a combination of all the same things. So you would have a fire strike team, same group of fire trucks. A task force is a combination. So this could be a, scene security task force. You've got the police car, the fire truck, and then the bulldozer to clear out rubble, something like that. So we were told our air crew, you call them a strike team. If you had a group of air crew show up in their airplane, different airplanes, that could be a search strike team, an air search strike team. But if you had a air crew and a ground team working together, that could be a search task force. All right, it's important to understand what your condition is. If you show up for a large exercise, you may just be shown as available. Just basically go into waiting, wait until you're needed, and you would be classified as available. If you're actually on a sortie, you are assigned. Then once you get back and you're resting and refitting, you would be out of service. These are your facility types: an instant command post, staging area, a base, camp, heli base, or heli spots. We don't deal with helicopters an awful lot, but if we do, these are what they'd be using. Most of the things we're going to see is the instant command post. There could possibly be a staging area set up, just so we're not all in the command staff's way. All right, so when you have a unified command, this is when you have different areas, different regions to deal with. So if you have region A, B, and C, and the incident covers all of them, essentially you're going to have a unified command where your incident commanders from those areas all work under unified command. And when we had our large region exercise earlier this year, that's kind of where we're working at. We had incident commanders for each state, for each wing, but then they were operating under the unified command incident commander. It's important to understand with the unified command, there's going to be one command post. There isn't. So for our region exercise, as an example, there was a command post at Camp Atterbury. There wasn't a bunch of individual command posts in each of the wings. There's one action plan with one operations section chief in charge. So you don't have a bunch of individual section chiefs. Otherwise, it gets confusing. All right. This is going pretty fast. So we have a couple slides left. This is what you're going to do next. If you haven't started yet, you need to start taking your FEMA courses. You need to get a FEMA student ID. These are the courses. And if you notice, I put the letter next to them. These are different versions. If you took IS 100 years ago, like I did, you don't have the current information. So when you have time, go ahead and retake it. The Introduction to the Instant Command System, that's IS 100C. So C is the current version. 700B is the Intro to the National Incident Management System. Both of those two are required for most of your qualifications above General Emergency Services. So those are the two generic ones you need to start with. As you move further up, IS 200C, Basic Incident Command System for Initial Response. If you're going to be a ground team leader, flight line supervisor, or mission pilot, anything above that's going to require 200. Then 800D, this one just changed. Introduction to the National Response Framework. It's going to be required for the comm unit leaders and other mission leaders above that. So for most of you, work on 100 and 700, then move on from there. Here's the website, training.fema.gov. Here's some other things to reference. I mentioned 60-3. Also note that this 60 series is becoming the cadet programs. So this should eventually become a 70 series reg. But 60-3 is the ES training and operational missions. That is your ES Bible. So this is the main one you want to focus on. 60-5 is incident stress management. 70-1, this is the new rewritten reg, is your flight management. Comms is 100-1. Safety is 160-1 and 60-2. This is an important one here. 173-3, reimbursement policies and procedures. This is one of the ones with 60-3 you need to study for your test or look at for your CAP Test 116. And then 900-3, firearms assistance to law enforcement. Good to know what we can't or can and cannot do. Then for electronic search, this is an old pamphlet, but ELT still work the same. So the ELT EPIRB search for CAP pamphlet 2. All right. Now, if you want to follow along, I have some step-by-step instructions for how to take the test. You're going to start out at the eServices main page. I'm going to go to the menu in the top left corner. Select Online Learning. And then drop down to the Learning Management System. So once you get into the Learning Management System, you're going to go click on Go to Access at the top of the screen. Go over to the menu and select CAP Training from the menu. And you're going to see CAP Test 116 General ES. You click Enroll in the course. Now, you notice these other 3 courses, Cap Test 117 Part 1, 2, and 3, you're going to need those later depending on which branch you go into, whether it's ground, air, or mission base. But for now, you want to just enroll in Cap Test 116. This is what it's going to look like once you get there. You need to make sure you hit start on the regulations. It'll open the regs for you to search. I recommend, though, you go to the publications library and download these 2 publications before you take the test. It's just easier to search for them on a separate screen. And then start your quiz. This is an open book test, just so you know. So take your time, find the answers. That way you only have to work on it once. And that is Cap Test 116 in General ES. It's kind of a lot in 51 slides there. Are there any questions that we missed in the chat?
How are we gonna log our things? How are we gonna like log and like keep track of them?
We'll cover that on Wednesday.
Okay, thank you.
But ops quals is the generic answer.
Right.
Anything else?
Does everybody understand the steps that he did to get to this test? Anybody have any issues with it? Did you maybe need to see it work through live? I mean, we want to make sure you guys are understanding this. Don't just nod your head saying yes.
So that is one of the problems with the new Access system. Once I've taken the test, I can't get to it the same way again. Yeah. So when I did these screenshots, that was me taking the test. Mm-hmm. So it's not going to be there now if I go back and try to do it live. Yeah. That's why I don't like Access.
Yeah. But I just want to make sure everybody's getting there, because again, if you don't take this test, you can't do anything else. You can't do any more. You can't do any of the rest of the training that we're going to be covering the rest of the month. So that's want to make sure you guys are getting into this test with no problems.
So in answer to Captain DeWalt's question, take the test now. You need to have the tests and your level 1, which I know you do. You need to have that done before you can do anything else. Just like Colonel Thurdiger said, this is the start of your ES career.
Does this qualification expire?
It will only expire when they change the test. Then you have to take the new test. I can't remember. It's been at least 10, 15 years since they redid the tests. They went from the Part 1 and Part 2.
I think 04 was the last update.
It's been a while.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
I would recommend doing it before Wednesday, yes. For the cadets out there, just so you know, having General Emergency Services done is one of the counters towards your Quality Cadet Unit Award. Hopefully this is something your cadet program staff has mentioned to you, but it's one of those easy things to do that you can still do under the quarantine for Quality Cadet Unit Award. So you're helping your squadron if you get this knocked out.
And I can say before I took this current position at Wing Staff, I used to be a group commander for Group 3. We had several squadrons that missed out on the unit award because they didn't have cadets that have taken this test. It's like if they would have just knocked this test out, they probably would have had that award presented to them. So it's very easy to do. It looks like a lot, but it's, not so bad.
Yeah, like Zhang said, 25 questions, an open book.
Yeah, I think when I took it many moons ago, I think it was like 100 questions. So it's definitely been scaled down a lot.
Then depending on which branch you're going into, give me a sec here. I'll pull up my squadron's ES site. I'll tell you which ones you need to focus on depending on what branch you're in. All right, so if you want to deal with the ground search track, so ground team leader, ground team member, urban direction finding, you want to take Cap Test 117 Part 1. So Part 1 for the ground search.
You're not showing anything, at least on
my I'm just talking.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Yeah, forget it. I will show you. Give me a sec. I'm gonna brag on my own squadron's website that I just created. Trying to make it useful for the beginner. Okay, you should all see my squadron's ES page right now. So I kind of went through and explained how to do the test. I have that same PowerPoint I showed you, the step-by-step guide for getting GES rate. I have that on there. I also have one for how to complete ICUT, which you're going to do on Friday. Ops quals for beginners, I'll talk about that on Wednesday, but if you want to get a head start, look at that. That shows you how to use ops quals and WIMRs. All right, so ground search. I have links for what you need to do for ground search, what it takes to be a trainee, the equipment you need to have. Then at the bottom of each one of these tracks, here's what you take. So cap test 117, part 1 for ground search. I also have kind of a map, step-by-step instructions for which buttons to click. If you're doing mission based, it's part 3. If you're working on the flight line, that's part 2, and same thing for aircrew. Aircrew and flight line are both cap test 117, part 2. And I also have a little blurb about the drone program that's just coming online. All right, Bruce, I will type in the address here.
And again, if you guys are going to be calling in on Wednesday, this is the exact same information Colonel Haas is going to cover then. Just, a lot more detail.
Yep.
So
I'm by no means an IT guru. I had to watch the demo slides and videos several times to figure this out. But I wanted to make an ES section for my website that would take the brand new person in there, give them an idea what General Emergency Services is and how to get started and move on through the different tracks. I even threw in pretty pictures about all the ribbons and awards you can win. But yeah, we will talk about this more on Wednesday. Don't want to steal my own thunder.
Yes. Now she's working.
All right. Any other questions for me?
I know we went through this fairly quickly, but again, this is about you guys. If there's anything that's you want to ask, please do. Like I said, we're here for this,
Yeah, I have one question. So I went on to Access, but I couldn't find Cap 116. I found the Access introduction. So do I need to do that first beforehand, or
No.
no?
All right, let me log in here and I will try to walk you through and get you in the general area. So hold on a sec.
And Access is a fairly new system, so it's still got some bugs, I guess you could say, that are being developed, maybe corrected. So, like
Yes.
I said,
one thing about Access is it doesn't automatically update. So if you take a test in Access, it's not going to automatically flow over into your squitter. You need to basically log out, log in again in order to kick it. I wrote a trouble ticket at the National and they ignored me. So they actually emailed me back and forth and eventually just ignored me. Okay, so you should see e-services. I have a bunch of favorite apps. If you don't have favorites set up, I recommend you do. It just makes things easier. But you're going to go over to the menu, go to online learning, learning management system, access. So probably the best way to do is go to the specialty, nope, how about course catalog? Course catalog and select emergency. You should see it. Like I said, it's not showing in mine because I've already taken it, and once you take it, it drops it away from your options.
Okay, thanks.
Did you find it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Any other questions? Oh, I would also like to point out that if you already took these tests in the learning management system, you don't have to retake them in LMS. Like, obviously, I've taken all these CAP tests 117s already, but I didn't do it in Access. It doesn't mean because they're showing that I have to do them again. So don't get confused with that. Don't redo the stuff unless you really want to. Unfortunately, Access and LMS don't talk to each other. So the stuff you've done in LMS isn't going to show in Access and vice versa. As a, I guess I forget which of my rights it is, but when I go into LMS to look at people's results, there's two buttons. One to look at what they've done in LMS, and one to look at what they've done in Access. So depending on your permissions, you'll have to make sure you select one or the other. Any questions?
So if you've taken the 116 and you've already done that, you're saying you do not have to take it again?
Correct.
Okay. And that also applies to 700?
So the 100 and 700, those are the FEMA courses. It's recommended that you take the current versions.
Yeah.
So let me back up to my slide, because I've been working my way through those two to take the current versions. The current versions are IS 100 Charlie, IS 700 Bravo, IS 200 Charlie, and IS 800D, or Delta. The Delta version of IS 800 just came out about a month or two ago. So that's the most current application there.
Okay, so if you only have the IS 100, IS 700, we need to go back in and do the 100C, 700B. Is that right?
I highly recommend it, just so you have the current information.
Okay, thank you, sir.
As far as your ops qual stuff, it doesn't, it's not required. I mean, it'll still show you current for 100 and 700. eServices isn't smart enough to mark you red because a new version came out, because it doesn't talk to FEMA. It's just up to you to understand. If you want the best information, take the current course. All right, wait, someone wants to know where the pubs are. All right, I will show you how to get to that. Very important to know where your pubs are at. Okay, so I'm going to get out of eServices, and the website is gocivilairpatrol.com. Lots of great resources here. I recommend you all take some time getting familiar with it. All right, so this is the main Go Civil Air Patrol page. You're going to go to the right-hand side, go to Members. When that drop-down menu opens, you're going to go to the Publication Library. And you're looking for Indexes, Regulations, and Manuals. Click on that. I'm going to scroll down to 60-3. There you go. Emergency Services Training and Operational Missions. Then right below that is a link to where all the task guides are. You're going to need these task guides for the courses starting next Friday, next week. The courses starting next week, you're going to need these task guides. Further down is the 173-3. So 173-3 and 60-3 are the two regulations you need to have for the CAP Test 116. Now back up, if you go over to the pamphlets, you will find pamphlet 2, the ELT EPIRB search. Now if you're brand new and going into the emergency services track, you also want to go down and find the ES pamphlet. Pamphlet 70-3. So if you're somehow working off of a CAP pamphlet 213 ES track guide, you're wrong and out of date. So scrap that one and transfer the information over to 70-3. That's the one you should be working on for your specialty tracks. Any other questions? And Colonel 30 Acre, I forget, did I already send you my slides for this?
No, you did not.
Okay, so what we can probably do is just load them back into the calendar. That way everyone who had the calendar invite just go back there and they'll find the slides.
Yep, that'll work.
So I'll do that once we get done here.
Yep. So any final questions? That didn't sound like I just want to check. Okay. So sounds as a no. Okay, we've been going for a little less than an hour here, so that's about what I was thinking this would take, but I wanted to leave the extra time just in case there was a lot of questions. I guess Colonel Hall is going to send me the slides so I can get those uploaded. This is being recorded. If somebody wants to review it, if you have any questions, please reach out to myself or Colonel Hiles, Cadet Zing, or your squadron ES officer. We can hopefully answer any questions you have. Sometimes things do get a little tricky, but we'll do our best. But if there's no other, I'm sorry, should I ask Colonel Cadet Zhang, is there anything you want to bring up? You haven't really said anything. Just make sure.
No, not really. Just I actually just took the test as a review, the 116. Same format as before, 25 questions. Some of the questions are a little bit tricky, so make sure you read through the wording of the question and, see exactly what it's trying to ask you. But most of the questions are pretty straightforward. So, yeah, just reference the publications. Control F is your friend. And yeah, if you have questions, let me know. Let our other instructors know, and we'll be happy to help.
Okay, thank you.
If anyone is interested in flight line marshaling training, I'm teaching that tomorrow night for my squadron's ES meeting from 7 to 8 o'clock. So feel free to look us up on the Illinois Wing calendar. Look up for the IL 205 calendar. Go ahead and map that, and you'll find our link for the Google Meet for tomorrow night. If you don't have an Illinois Wing email address, now's the time to get one. Instructions are under the IT section of the Illinois Wing webpage.
Yes.
For those of you not from the Wing, shoot me an email and I will send you a link directly. I'll put my email down here for everyone.
Yes, please. So, all right. So he's loading his email up. I'd like to thank everybody for calling in. Again, this is kind of an unusual time for everybody. I know I've had a lot of people asking questions, how we're going to do this, and hopefully this format works for us for the next month. I know there'll be some bugs, but just stay with us. So hopefully everybody will come in, starting Wednesday and then Friday and continue on. So thank you for coming in tonight. So if there's no other questions, I think we'll call for the evening. Everybody have a good night, and hopefully we'll see a lot of you back on Wednesday.
Now, everybody, see you Wednesday.
No.